Okay guys, one of the best kettlebell exercises there is the kettlebell windmill. Now we've taught this to thousands of people, and people probably have more trouble with this exercise than any other. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a series of variations and then progressions so you can learn this great complex movement correctly. Because if done incorrectly, you can really load the lower back. So we wanted to make sure that you guys are doing it right. So what we're going to start is we're going to start with a low windmill. So what Tarek's going to do is he's going to firstly position his feet. So if he's tilting to the left, it means he has to have his feet angled towards that way. Now the important thing here is that all the movement is through the hips. It's essentially a hip flexion and extension exercise, only it's done in this angle as opposed to sagittal forwards and backwards. Now where most people get it wrong is they turn through the spine and they really load through here. So we don't want any lateral flexion through the spine, but rather what we want to do is we want to load through this glute and load through these hips, okay? Now, you can see that Tarek's got a soft front knee, but a locked out back knee. That's what we want to use for all of our variations. Soft, locked out. The amount of bend that he has here is the maximum amount of bend that he's going to have in his knee throughout the whole movement. Now what he's going to do is he's going to keep his eye on his fist. That's going to be the bell in our next variation. And he's just going to drive the hips through. And can you see that he drove the hips through to what we call terminal hip extension. He really drove them through, and that way we're getting the most activation through the glutes. And where the windmill is particularly good is for these lateral glutes. So glute medius minimus really loads through those lateral glutes, which are traditionally very weak glutes. Once you can do that through a low windmill, what we can do is a couple of different things. We can elevate so we can go down lower on that low windmill. So we're going to use a plate, ideally a Reebok step is, would be perfect. And now we've got an increased range of movement on this low windmill. So Tarek is just going to show us how it's done. Quite narrow the stance. As I said, ideally you want a step and then coming up. You can see now it's the same movement, only he's getting a little deeper into the range, because the limiting factor on your range of movement is going to be the bell touching the body. Once you're comfortable with that movement, so really how I describe it is you want to cock the hips and then move through the hips. Once you're comfortable through that, you're not loading through the lower back, you're not lunging through the movement, then what we can do is go to a high windmill. So you can snatch or clean and press the bell so it's upright, and it's the same movement, only now the bell is above the head. And really you work to your range of movement. Tarek's touching the ground. For me, I can't quite touch the ground. So you just worked within your realms of movement, and don't overdo it on this one. The advantage of the high windmill here is it is great for both shoulder mobility and stability as well. Okay? Next progression is you can do this off a step again to increase the range of movement, or in time we can even add a second kettlebell, so one high and one low. So there's a couple of different variations we can do, and this is really your end range on the continuum of progression. So this is what you want to do when you really are advanced through this motion. Okay, so really keeping an eye, and if that, we could see that Tarek could get through a lower range of movement before, so he might stand up on a step so he can still get down on that low range of movement. So there you have the windmill. You know how to do it properly, you know what to look for. A terrific movement for both your hips and your overhead stability. Thanks guys.